You're watching the Isaiah Factor Uncensored.
And welcome back to the second half of the Factor Uncensored. Could the future of education be in trouble? The nation's report card is in, and it doesn't look so hot. Now, according to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, this is the largest decline in math ever. The NAEP says a fourth grade math score has dropped 5 points, its lowest level since 2005. The average eighth grade math score has dropped 8 points. It's the lowest since 2003. Researchers believe the low scores show how the pandemic has affected these young minds. Joining me now here are on the Factor Uncensored with the Houston Department of Education, Eric Dick, and Hubert Roberson, who is a former educator, and you were on the front lines. What did you see in the classroom after kids started returning back after the pandemic?
Thank you for having me. I saw a plethora of things. Some things I saw was that there were gaps primarily in math and in reading, and which as a educator, is something that we wanted to make sure we took a good looked at the data and tried to support that. One thing I also noticed is that there was a need for social and emotional learning. That a lot of times the anxiety that comes into play with students and academia had took a hit while they were out on the virtual learning.
And what did you see in the classroom when it came to the students, with emotional development, learning, social skills, all of that? How were they when they returned after the pandemic?
Yes, sir. So when they returned after the pandemic, there was a greater need for intervention. There was a greater need to close learning gaps and make sure that these students were able to perform on grade level. There was also a greater need to tap into the anxiety issues that were produced during the pandemic. You had a lot of people off work. You had a lot of people to experience sicknesses. You had economic hardships within the family. I'm the type of educator that believes in educating the whole child, and all of these different factors came into play, and it showed when I went in to observe the classrooms.
And Eric, what can we do in order to fix this problem? Obviously, the Secretary of Education here in the United States said that we need to use the funding that we have out there to improve the scores, improve students, but it takes time when they were out of the mix that long.
Sure. So I think what's important for those that like data, NCES actually released information a couple months ago. That's National Center for Educational Statistics. And those stats were fascinating. They looked at children about 9 years old, and you saw the lowest the 25th percentile, the lowest percentile struggled the most. And then the lowest 10th percentile is there was a dip about 12.6 points. It was about 10 points with the 25th percentile. Really were the problems, the largest percentage of students that struggled the most were those with the least means. That's what we see. They didn't have computers at the time. They didn't have access to certain information at the time. So of course, financing and having money does help education. I know just statewide, we're strapped. We're using our whole system's kind of put together by shoestring and bubble gum. So in that does help having more money, but also what helps is those that are the least amongst us need more attention. And that's kind of really where we need to focus at is the people that have the least have struggled, and there's been a big dip there. And it's also important to note that at no point was there any state that increased in scores during 2020 to 22. It was levels of lowering of scores, and it was the bottom 10% that had the highest scores reduced.
Now, Mr. Roberson, we know educators will do their role in the classroom. What advice would you have for parents who has a struggling child at home? Would you tell them to get involved or to hire a tutor if they can? Obviously, we know some parents cannot.
Absolutely.
But what role should they play in helping their child get to where they need to be educationally?
Yeah, I would say definitely partner with the educational system, partner with the schools, talk to your teacher, email the teachers, take a look at the data. Sit down with someone and understand the data, understand how to read a STAR test, understand how to read a a benchmark assessment or a district level assessment. And once you understand that data in those opportunity areas, once you open that dialogue with the teacher, with the educators that are servicing your child, then you take a collaborative approach. You do the tutoring. You may have to have some outside tutoring. You may have to understand how the interventions
And you don't
work.
have to have just a lot of money for that. There are
Absolutely.
resources in
There
the
are
community
resources,
that
yes.
you can reach out to
Right,
get
and
tutoring for your child.
Absolutely, and a lot of those things are built into the school day. You just have to understand it and also follow up with your child to make sure that it's being done with fidelity. And I think that's the first step, to understand where those opportunities lie and then tackle them in a collaborative way.
And this is a reminder to both of you just how important it is to be in that classroom, front and center, with that educator one-on-one, or whatever the class number size is, but being in the classroom with that teacher.
Absolutely.
Well, being in the classroom is very important, but also being at the same start line is even more important. And that's what you saw, is many people weren't even at the same start line, as they didn't have computers or access to other things that were important in their education.
What would you advise school districts like yours and others, and even parents, to do, Eric?
Be active in their child's education. Try, at least pay attention to it. The children are very sensitive to changes in our environment, and it was a difficult time. Reading and math are very important, and we need to focus on that.
All right, we want to thank you both for joining us here on The Factor Uncensored. We appreciate your time tonight.